You are now tuned into SFTV Africa.
There comes a point in almost every young person's life wherein they are asked a simple question. So, what do you do? It is a question we ask without thinking at family gatherings, on first dates, at a networking event, during interviews, even among friends. But hidden within that question is another one we rarely acknowledge. Who are you? For generations, the answer was straightforward. I'm a teacher, I'm an electrician, I'm a nurse, I'm an accountant. Work wasn't simply a way to earn a living. It became part of our identity. It told the world where we belonged, what we contributed, and in many ways, what our future looked like. But what happens when you have no answer? What happens when you are educated, ambitious, and ready to work, yet opportunity never arrives? In South Africa, this is no longer an individual story, it is a generational one. Youth unemployment has become one of the most defining challenges of our democracy. While conversations often focus on economic growth, labor markets, and government policy, we seldom ask what unemployment does to a person's identity. Perhaps that is because identity cannot be measured in percentages. You cannot quantify dignity, you cannot calculate self-worth, and you certainly cannot place a statistic on hope. Yet, these are often the first things unemployment takes away. Now, according to StatsSA's quarterly labor force survey, unemployment among economically active young adults aged 25 to 34 remain above 40%, making them one of the most hardest hit working age groups in the country. These are people who have completed school, earned qualifications, acquired skills, and entered adulthood expecting to participate in the economy, but instead, many remain excluded from it. Now, the conversation begins with education, right? For decades, South Africans have been told that education is the pathway out of poverty. Parents worked overtime. Grandparents used their pensions. Entire families invested everything they had into one child's education because they believed the qualification would open doors that had remained closed for generations. And for some, it still does, don't get me wrong, but for many graduates, graduation is no longer the beginning of opportunity, the beginning of uncertainty. CV after CV, interview after interview, application after application. Weeks become months, months become years. Eventually, unemployment stops feeling temporary. It begins feeling permanent. The World Bank has repeatedly argued that South Africa faces a labor market where economic growth has not translated into sufficient job creation, particularly for young people entering the workforce. At the same time, employers increasingly expect experience from applicants seeking their very first opportunity. It creates a painful contradiction. How do you gain experience when no one is willing to give you a chance? This is where unemployment stops being an economic issue and becomes deeply personal. Because after enough rejection, people stop questioning the economy. They begin questioning themselves. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not qualified enough. I'm not good enough. The problem is that unemployment slowly transforms from something you experience into something you become. And that's where identity begins to fracture. There's another side to this conversation that we don't discuss nearly enough, which is culture. Across many South African communities, employment has traditionally marked the transition into adulthood. It meant contributing to your household, supporting younger siblings, helping your parents, saving towards lobola, planning for marriage, building a home, providing for a family. Employment wasn't simply about earning money. It was about fulfilling cultural expectations. But what happens when those expectations remain while opportunities disappear? Many young South Africans are delaying marriage, postponing parenthood, and remaining financially dependent on their families well into adulthood. Not because they lack ambition, not because they reject tradition, but because the economic foundation that once supported those traditions has become increasingly unstable. As a result, our understanding of adulthood is changing. Success is becoming redefined. For some, success means securing permanent employment. For others, it means freelancing, starting a business, becoming a photographer, launching a podcast, selling products online, building a career through digital platforms that barely existed 20 years ago, or more than that. This adaptability deserves recognition. South African youth have consistently demonstrated resilience in difficult circumstances, but resistance should never become an excuse for inaction. We often celebrate young entrepreneurs while ignoring the conditions that forced many of them into entrepreneurship in the first place. Entrepreneurship is valuable. Innovation is essential. But not everyone wants to become a business owner. Many simply want a fair opportunity to work. The mental health consequences of unemployment also deserve greater attention. Imagine waking up every morning knowing exactly what you need to do. Search for vacancies, update your CV, write another cover letter, submit another application, then wait and wait and wait. Because now silence becomes familiar, rejection becomes routine. Eventually, people stop applying with hope. They apply out of habit. Research published by the International Labour Organization has consistently shown that prolonged employment among young adults is associated with poorer mental well-being, lower confidence, and reduced long-term employment prospects. This isn't simply about income. It is about dignity. Because meaningful work offers something that money alone cannot. Purpose, routine, belonging, contribution. Without those things, many young people begin feeling disconnected, not only from the economy, but from society itself. This has broader consequences. When an entire generation struggles to find meaningful work, frustration inevitably grows. Some disengage from politics altogether. Others become increasingly vocal in demanding accountability. Some leave the country in search of opportunity elsewhere. Others remain hoping tomorrow will finally bring the opportunity yesterday promised. The question we should be asking isn't whether young people want to work. The evidence shows they do. It suggests they do. The better question is whether South Africa is creating enough meaningful opportunities for them to participate in its future. Because unemployment is never just about jobs. It shapes families, it influences relationships, it changes culture, it affects mental health, it determines whether young people believe they have something worth contributing. Perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't that millions of young South Africans are unemployed. Perhaps it's that many have begun believing unemployment defines who they are. But identity should never be determined by economic circumstance. A person's value cannot be measured by whether they receive a monthly salary. A graduate without work is still educated. A skilled artisan without employment is still skilled. A creative without clients is still a creative. Potential does not disappear simply because opportunity is delayed. The challenge before South Africa is not simply creating jobs. It is restoring belief. Belief that hard work still matters. Belief that education still has value. Belief that opportunity remains possible. Because when a generation loses faith in its future, the consequences extend far beyond economics. They shape the future of our democracy, our culture, and society. So perhaps the next time we ask someone, what do you do? We should remember that behind every answer or every silence is a human being navigating circumstances that are not, or rather, that are rather often far bigger than themselves. And until we understand that, we will be heading somewhere. This has been another conversation exploring the social and political issues that are shaping South Africa here at SFTB Africa. I am Kananelo Quentin Siamahale, the man on the mic. Until next time, stay focused, stay informed, stay curious, and keep the conversation going.